Welcome back, Marcus. Thanks for coming on. Really excited to get some more information about the Calexit movement, what updates there are since the last time we spoke. I think that was like 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
Um, Lots changed since then. In my estimation, it's probably going to be some good information and good news regarding the Calexit movement. Seeing that there is a lot of renewed interest in what that means, what Calexit means, what that means for Californians, for everyone. I just want to kind of get some ideas, some updates as to, again, where the movement is, where you are with the movement, what you've been hearing, and if you have any information that you want to share with us, please feel free to do so. The floor is all yours.
Well, we're going to refile. We had collected enough signatures to qualify technically. You needed about 550,000 signatures. We sent out about 1 million text messages, 230,000 emails. We collected another, or gave about 95 to 120,000 other petitions from people directly. And then there was additional interest after Donald Trump sent in the Marines. The problem is a lot of the people are coming with just pure passion. They've never worked in politics. They've never signed a petition before. They've never asked someone to sign a petition before, and they don't know the California regulations related to it. So if you get the signature to not match identically, if the address is wrong, if you mix counties on the form, all of that disqualifies the signature. When you hire paid signature gatherers, they know that, and so the result is like almost zero errors. But when you're using organic, and you're educating people through videos and like, I don't have time to meet everybody, so I watch a training video, and then you hope that they get it, you're not sure. So about a month and a half ago, we realized that we were coming close, and we could either do a Hail Mary and say, hey, everybody, turn it in. We're going to go for the win. We think we got the numbers. Let's go for it no matter what. The problem is we thought we do that, and then 200,000 signatures are invalidated. And so the public's going to hear you met the qualification, and then they're going to be disappointed because 200,000 were removed, which is kind of the average 150, 130,000, 200,000 through an audit. And then we thought that would really demoralize everybody. So we thought better to refile, and then we could guarantee the win. As I like to say, we would start the race with Olympically trained legs rather than having just got out of a wheelchair with 6 months in coma. And then we could run a lot better. So if we refile, we get 5.5 months. We can collect the money for the professional signature gathering. There's some fundraising opportunities that we have that I wanted to cover in this show. And then we could do organic signature gathering. You need to get really about 750,000 to qualify for an initiative of 550,000, given the audit rate is so extreme in California. It's not that way everywhere, but in California it is. So we said, okay, it's disappointing, but it would be better than to have the headline going, they said they qualified up, they didn't. And then people are disappointed. Go, look, we're going to do it right, so that when we say we have a guaranteed win, it's a guaranteed win. And that's roughly what's going on. Now, in the meantime, nothing is slowed down. So while we're refiling, we have a ton of things going on. We've also made a lot of progress in the last 2 months. And I wanted to show everybody that we have a lot of venues opening up beyond just the petition. And we have a lot of things coming in the near future that are completely independent from the petition process and could change the game, as we like to say. So if we could, with the queue, put up the mass email that was sent out recently.
I got you right here.
Boom. We sent this email out to everybody. I don't know if we can put it in the browser, but that line, view this email in your browser. That's a text URL. Maybe we could attach it to the video description. People could look at it or whatever. Anyways, this is the email we sent out to everybody, kind of straightforward. It's long. I was told it's too long. It's too boring. And okay, but I want to make sure people are informed. So we're going to refile the same petition around August 1st. We actually have till August 12th to do it. So the first week of August. We estimate it'll take a month for the paperwork to be processed, and we'll be likely right back where we are September 1st. So not that long a hiatus. If you scroll down, I did a video that's on my channel explaining all of this, basically what we're going to talk about. There's a press release at the bottom covering this. We'll cover that. What we were really happy was that we got CBS TV, CBS Radio, CBS Instagram, Courthouse News, MSN News, and Osaka TV Japan to cover our announcement that we're going to refile and all of the other great activities. We were really pleased because You send a press release out and the media either covers it or they don't, or they can change it what it is. You never know how it goes. We had a lot of the media report the message exactly how we wanted it to. And so all of those articles cover that we're refiling and that we have a lot of great stuff coming. We're really excited about that media coverage. You never know how it goes with the media, but they totally got what we were saying and they agreed. If we scroll down a little bit more. So what we're doing right now is we're doing a sign-on online petition. We're asking people if they could host a house party. We want to have house party gatherings around California. We got about 15 people from the Bay Area, San Diego, Los Angeles, and Palm Springs is a big spot, who are willing to do that. We're looking for more. The idea is we'll have small gatherings, 5 people to 20 people. It could be at someone's place. It could be at a local park. Some people doing coffee shops. Some people are doing like local churches, whatever. But meetings around California where we're going to talk to the people and get them amped up for the next stage and let them know what's going on. The other one is a social amplifier. If you're willing to help promote our message and you have a small social network, please contact us. We're looking for people to help spread the message. Finally, there's a public meeting tonight at 7. And this is what I was talking about with the news. The great news is that the news covered why we refiled perfectly, which I already mentioned, and mentioned all the game-changing events we have planned in the next 1 to 2 months. You never know how the media is going to be. They could have not covered that. They could have trashed it. They didn't. They covered it exactly like I've told you and what we're going to cover now. If we could scroll down some more. Nothing stopped while we refiled. There's tons of events plans and you ain't seen nothing yet. So let's go to this slide. This is the first one. And I made this so that I could address the questions directly. Why should you still believe in Calexit? Why should you donate to Calexit? Why should you volunteer to Calexit? Why should you care? Right? We didn't turn in the signatures. What's up? So let me address that directly. We've accomplished more than any Calexit group has in 10 years in just the last 2.5 months. So everything I'm going to tell you, I've been at this 12 years. A lot of people have been at this since 2016, 8 years. A lot of people were there for about 10 years. So if you want to look at it from 8 to 12 years, we've accomplished not one of the things that I'm going to show you. And in the last 2.5 months, we've done about 8 to 10 of them. We have gigantic plans for the future that are so bold, no one has ever tried them before. Here's some of our accomplishments so that you know. We held a fundraiser that raised thousands. We brought on a high-level Democrat to publicly be part of Calexit. No one's ever done that before. We couldn't even get politicians to acknowledge we existed. We started directly lobbying Democrats in office and running for office for a blue ribbon panel investigation on Calexit. No one's ever done that before. We couldn't get any contact with politicians. We're now in contact with multiple assembly people, and we have more meetings with them in August. And we have high-ranking people in the government and running for the government reaching out to us, and we're having a conversation about the blue ribbon panel behind the scenes. The key part about the blue ribbon panel was we figured out that could achieve Calexit all on its own. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it as we go through. But you need to have a vote, and you need to do a lot of other things. But we felt, just picture this. News headline. World's 4th largest economy. The government officially investigates secession. That's going to be news everywhere. That'll be across America. That'll be across California. That'll be covered in France, Germany, England. Just world's 4th largest economy. The government officially is investigating secession. Doesn't mean they're doing it. Doesn't mean there's a vote planned. Doesn't even mean they're sure about doing it. But it says they're officially investigating it. We realized that would send shockwaves enough. Everybody would hear about it. Everybody in California would be talking about it. A new plateau would be created, and more politicians would be coming, in addition to angel investors, just because it would break the hold that this is just a radical idea. The government of California is actually looking into this. Boom, done. Massive sea change. We're closer than ever in just the last 3 weeks to talking to people to get it done. A lot of it goes through Dr. Harmon, our contact. In addition, we actually have a corporation with a CEO who's ran 6 publicly traded companies and 4 to 5 private companies. We have a CFO who's been a chief financial officer for about 20 corporations, a publicist who broke the Biggie Tupac story and has worked in hip hop and other media for the last 20 years, a political director who was on the End of Life campaign, which was to change assisted suicide in California over 10 years, and it was successful. Nobody has had one of those professionals. We've always had volunteers joining and going, hey, I'm willing to try. Like myself, I'm not qualified to do about 30,000 things that I do. I just got good at it through practice. We actually have trained professionals who've been in the background and they're working in Calexit. Nothing like that's ever happened. We've never had a CEO, CFO, political director, nobody, again, they wouldn't even spit on us before. We've also created a cryptocurrency for Calexit with a world leading expert, John Moyer, I believe. And he's gotten some other companies $1 billion in crypto. So we just need to get our name going, and we think that'll grow up. We sent out text messages to 1 million Californians who were uncontacted. Nobody's ever reached out to more than 30,000. We sent out 1 million, and then we sent out about 300,000 emails to Californians who were uncontacted. I see there's some spelling errors there. Forgive me.
Blue ribbon panel. You've mentioned that before in a previous episode. Can you just give a quick explanation as to what that is and what process that looks like?
Absolutely. So let me be a little bit of a nerd. Is that okay?
Of course.
Hiram Johnson, great man. Around the early 1900s, the railroads owned all of California. This was the time of the railroad bigwigs. The railroads owned everything. Well, they were kind of buying off all the politicians around 1911. So anything the people wanted, the railroads were going, no, we just bought your politicians and we're not going to do that. People in California revolted. It was led by a guy called Hiram Johnson. And they created something called the initiative process. This exists in only 3 states in America. No one else has it. And they basically can't get it because this is grandfathered in from over 100 years ago. By the way, only Switzerland has the same level of direct democracy that's available in California. International scholars consider Switzerland the highest democracy in the earth over the last 30 years. We exhibit a feature of their democracy that's only found here and 2 other states in all of America. So you can have people collect signatures. If they do, it goes directly to the voters. The legislature, the governor could say, I don't like this, I don't want it. Absolutely doesn't matter at all. You collect the signatures, it goes right over the legislature's head directly to the voters. It was a way to supersede the legislature, and they created that so that when the railroad barons controlled the legislature, they could get signatures and go to vote right to the people. And that's how they were able to control corruption. It's basically held on for a century, probably can't be created anywhere else. I don't even know if the other states use it, but we use it here. It's almost found nowhere else in democracies. It's us in Switzerland and maybe like 1 or 2 other places. It's a very rare function that we basically just lucked in through history.
So that essentially forces a direct democratic vote, right? In this case, it would be for a Calexit recognition.
So you could do that. That's what we're doing with the initiative now, is it would force a vote of the people, and it would call for the blue ribbon panel. Now, to get at your question, the blue ribbon panel is a very banal thing that the governments do. Best example was 3 years ago, women started getting sick from nail salons. And so what they did was they got a bunch of nail salon owners together. They got a bunch of chemists together. They got women who had been hurt together. They got some scientists together, and they figured out what was going on. And it was something about the tools weren't in the right disinfectant solution. Relatively simple. But you want to have the right answer and you don't want to guess. So they get scientists and doctors and business owners and the people who were affected. And so you're talking to the customers and you're talking to the business owners and you're talking to scientists, and you come up with a report going, nail salons exist in California. There's 5,000 of them. Roughly, this is how many people use it. By the way, people are getting sick because of X. We recommend that you do Y to solve that. This happens every year. It usually child education, stuff like that. This was done for marijuana legalization, by the way, the same thing. That was a huge topic led by Governor Newsom, but that was a blue ribbon panel. They interviewed a bunch of marijuana distributors. They interviewed corporations who'd want to get into it. They interviewed law enforcement officials, doctors on how much high you could get from the weed, etc. Came up with a huge report. All we're saying is California would do this thing they do every year for secession. So instead of looking into childhood education or autistic stuff or women's hair care, you would look into secession. You would take a banal, boring, normal government process and make it radical by simply inserting the topic of radicalism in there. That automatically forces the government of California to start talking to scholars on secession, start talking to secession activists like me, start watching all the interviews, the things like you have done. They'd have to actually start paying attention and look and get experts together and legal scholars and then produce a report of findings. That doesn't mean that secession happens. The report may even suggest that secession is a bad idea. We don't know, but it would be an official government investigation into seceding from America, officially condoned by the California government. And there'd be televised hearings of Californians talking about secession in the Sacramento building. That's never happened since 1860. That would be shockwaves, especially when you consider the World Economic Forum. I don't know if I showed this last time, but the World Economic Forum in 2016, we had just filed a petition, right? We hadn't even gotten anywhere. World Economic Forum is the group of people who run the global economy. They had a conference on what if California becomes independent within a month of us filing the petition in 2016. We were at a proto stage of attention. We really hadn't done anything that big. We were just getting started. People really just heard about us. Here's the World Economic Forum. They heard a whiff of California may be independent. Boom. The top people who run the global economy, the richest, smartest 5,000 bankers and billionaires, had a meeting on California being independent with just a whiff of that. Can only imagine if the government actually investigated it, it'd be game over. And by the way, super easy to achieve. For a signature gathering campaign, you need 550,000 signatures. For a blue ribbon panel, you need 7 legislators total. There's over 100 in Sacramento. It only takes 7 to enact a panel. It takes 2 to propose it and 5 to confirm it. We have multiple examples of this. So 7 people out of 80 could propose the blue ribbon panel. And we're also going for 550, actually 750,000 signatures. So there's multiple ways to skin this cat is what we've realized. And we've realized that if you get the blue ribbon panel done, it doesn't make it happen, but it would be such a catalyzing event that nobody can predict what comes out on the other side. And we're basing that off Scotland. Scotland was part of England for 500 years. And then they had a thing called the Coleman Commission, a blue ribbon panel held by the Scottish government out of Holyrood. Within 5 years of that panel publishing that report, they were having votes for independence. Historians say that you can date the history of Scottish independence to when that report came out, that it was guaranteed going to happen. It was another 5 years, and then there was another vote 5 years after that. But historians looking at the 500-year trajectory go, the moment the government of Holyrood officially investigated breaking off from England for the first time in 500 years, that exploded the Scottish people's minds. And they couldn't stop talking about independence, and historians say from that date on, you could guarantee there'd be a vote. Didn't mean there weren't problems, didn't mean there weren't people going, oh, this will never work, but so impactful, it catalyzes the population. We think that would definitely happen here in California, given the World Economic Forum covered it was just getting started in 2016. We're much more advanced 8 years later. Additionally, 2 legislators out of 80 have to propose it, and 5 more confirm it. That's so easy. 100,000 phone calls, a sixth of all the signatures that we would need to collect would be enough to force the government under pressure to do that. 50,000 phone calls targeted to 2 legislators, maybe all that it takes. That's a tenth of the amount of signatures we need. And so we've realized that you can go for the initiative process, which gives us a guaranteed win. There's also this low-hanging fruit of you just lobby 2 legislators really hardcore and then follow up with another 5 out of 80. And we're not talking about the lieutenant governor or the governor. We're talking about assembly people. They're very accessible, the lowest level of the state government, people you can meet in your neighborhood.
You know, this makes me think about, I mean, you mentioned Scotland. We can also think about the Basque Country in Spain, Catalonia, Northern Ireland. I feel like they're going through relatively similar phases in their history, right? So let's take the example of the Basque Country, specifically Catalonia, because they're a little bit further into their independence movement. Um, it right now it essentially seems like a vote of no confidence, where they declare that they want to be independent, and they have for a while. And the Spanish government, Spanish crown, essentially says, "We see you. Sorry, it's not going to happen, but thanks for voting." And it seems like there's more and more and more acceptance and demands for independence as the years go on. And you just see those percentages rise in the populace over there. So do you think that California would be in a similar situation to Spain,
Not at all.
where
Not at all.
and why is that?
So for specific reasons. So again, we have the benefit of having an initiative process where you can legally collect signatures and it goes to a vote. That does not exist anywhere in Spain or anywhere in the EU outside of Switzerland, period. So when the people in Catalonia and the other areas started to do that, it was strictly illegal and there was no legal basis for what they were doing. So when they gathered votes and held voting, that was just them saying, we feel we could do this because it's a right of democracy, which it is, and which under international law that is legal. But under direct Spanish law, it is not legal, and there is no legal path forward. Totally different than California. We've had the initiative process enshrined in law for over a century and backed up by multiple California attorney generals. They have nothing like that in Spain and in most of Europe. So, followed by the fact that California has a Supreme Court case, which the media will not acknowledge, called Texas versus White. It is the only Supreme Court case on secession. The Constitution says nothing about secession. The Constitution says only the Supreme Court can determine legal questions. The Supreme Court did one case on a legal question, and they said you can secede with, quotes, consent to the states. If they meant the amendment process, why did they not say the amendment process? The amendment process had been around since 1776. This court case was argued in 1879, 100 years later. They accidentally forgot there was an amendment process when they said consent, or they didn't think you needed it. Consent could have been a simple majority vote. So we have a Supreme Court case. We have a constitution that's silent but says the Supreme Court decided. And we have a local initiative process in California. Spain has none of those things. None. That's why when Catalonia tried to become independent, they could send SWAT teams in with machine guns and crack grandmothers in the head. I saw the picture where they batoned a grandmother in the head, split her head open because she dared to vote. And then they went into buildings with machine guns and SWAT teams, guns in your face, to grab voting boxes and then destroy them. Totally legal. By the way, America, England, France completely backed up Spain on that. There was no pushback from England, France, or America about how that's undemocratic to smack people in the head and crack their head open in the streets because they wanted to vote, or to put sub-automatic machine guns, fully loaded clips in their face, threatening to blow them away because they wanted to vote. No one in the West said anything, including America. Totally cool. Now, we have legal process in California where they can't do that. But in Spain, they could. And so they have a hard push. This is the same problem with Texas and many other places. They don't have the initiative process. I've talked to other secessionists. They wish they did. They don't have it. So they have to directly lobby their legislators, or they have to ask for the law to be changed to allow for an initiative process. They're a step back from the availability that we have. We're uniquely blessed by history here in California that we have these legal paths, and they're just not available to 47 other states or about 195 other nations out of 200.
So it's sounding like it's doable. It's sounding like that there is a legal precedent that we can go into an established process, mostly established. I'm sure that there are some things that we'll learn as we go, right? But if we are in a position as a state to actually become independent and go through this official process and gain independence in a way that does not involve violence or war, then
absolutely,
it makes me wonder why are we not doing it, or why is the media not covering this as much? And then I think you just explained that when you mentioned that certain governments supported the Spanish government in quelling their own protests and their own independence movements, like the Basques and the Catalonians. And it just seems like, as a layperson, a government not wanting anyone to get any ideas and just saying, well, if they did it in Spain, then we can probably do it in California. And it doesn't seem like that would behoove the U.S. government, right?
I would say yes, but I'd have to guess, right? So I don't have somebody with their hand in the cookie jar going, ha, 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 I pull the strings behind the government and we don't really want you to know about these things while calling ourselves a free press and democracy. I totally believe that, though. We do have the pathways here. We can use them. It is fully legal. And for whatever reason, I can't get the media to mention Texas versus White says consent to the states. And I can't get them to mention that Erwin Chemerinsky, who's argued in front of the Supreme Court, is the most cited legal jurist in 2017, started 2 different law schools, and is routinely cited as a legal expert, said it's a simple majority vote of Congress. I've told about 70 reporters. None of them will print that. I don't know why. I gave them the sources. It takes about 5 seconds to find it online and verify what I'm telling is the truth. Nobody will print it. And you're going, well, why aren't we doing this? Because they won't print that it's legal. 80% of the people who support Calexit and contact me say, I know this isn't legal, but let's do it anyways. It's completely legal. Our support base is almost 80% people who are like, screw it, let's just do it. They don't even know it's legal and they're for it. My God, if we actually had people understand it's completely legal, we'd have 500% more members. So the answer to your question is they won't let it be known that it's completely legal. I have to do information like this. And we are winning, but it's slow, right? I don't know why they won't do it. Erwin Chemerinsky exists. He did an article in GQ magazine in 2017. He literally said simple majority vote. Texas versus White exists. It's on the internet. It literally says consent to the states. We have four California attorneys general who admit Texas versus White exists and it says consent to the states. And yet I can't get any news reporter to print that. Kamala Harris recognized this law. Javier Becerra recognized. Kathleen Keenely, Rob Bonta, we forced them all by filing initiatives to have to admit this law exists. And yet 4 attorney generals, top legal scholar in California, no mention in the news. For whatever that is. And if I go down and explain it, I go down conspiracy avenue, so I won't do that. I'll just say, wow, really strange that there's a lot of evidence, and for some reason, very simple facts can't be printed for the public, which would convince them it's 100% legal and would probably get us 500 to 600% more interest. I can't prove this, but it's almost like someone knows that and doesn't want that to happen. 2 other quick stories. Texas was able to get their idea in the Republican Party platform. It took them years of lobbying, but they did it. About a month after that, Facebook shut down all their pages without telling them for treason, because they just interpreted it as treason, just decided to shut it all down without telling them. Then they went to a lawsuit. They'd been around for about 5-6 years. No problem with Facebook. Within 1 month of getting it in the Republican Party platform, this happens. A bunch of other stuff. New Hampshire gets 3 people elected to the government legally. They propose exploring independence. Within 2 weeks, the New Hampshire legislature speaker declares that they've all committed treason and that he will pursue federal charges against them. That's never happened in 200 years in the New Hampshire legislature. You propose something, I want you arrested, and I want you thrown out. That's never happened, but it happened to them within 2 weeks. We went to the California Democratic Party convention, made major inroads, didn't hear about it from anybody, and then Donald Trump sent in the Marines, angry combat Marines. Remember the angry Marines on a protest? That's never happened in U.S. history. A day after that, I can't say their names, but we had high-ranking politicians calling us. Our CEO was getting so many phone calls from high-ranking politicians, he was freaking out. And he goes, why are they all calling me? I go, because Trump landed the Marines yesterday. We went to the CADNC convention. We told them monsters exist and they're going to come to your neighborhood and they can eat you and there's nothing you can do to protect them. We were the only people saying monsters exist. Nobody else even acknowledged that monsters exist. And then a week later, they literally saw a monster come in their neighborhood and eat their neighbor. we're the only people who said those things exist. We were at the DM convention. Nobody was saying, you can't stop Trump. This is Trump's America. Federalism overrules us and there's nothing you can do. But no one was saying that. We were the only people. So when it literally happened in front of their eyes a week later, we are the experts in the room. We are the only people who said monsters exist. And so they came running to us. 1 week after we start having high-ranking Dems call us, boom, Politico was going to do an article on us. They came out 2 months earlier. Sent a reporter, sent a photographer. We were sure we were going to get an article. They didn't do anything. They just sat on it. 2 days after the politicians start calling us, here's a reporter from Politico. He calls me. Mark, I got, there's a story. We're going to be running it in 48 hours. You got questions to go. And regardless of what you're giving us, we're going to be running the story no matter what you tell us within 48 hours. This is your warning. Okay, I got to go. Bye. Bizarre. I've done about 500 interviews. Really bizarre behavior. Secondly, they sent 30 questions. It was for a hit job article. I've been in hit job articles. They normally do 5. This was 30. So super bizarre. We defeated all the questions. We deflated whatever they were going to try to say. They went away. They didn't even respond. 2 days after we deflated all their questions with a response, Fair Political Practices Commission reopens an investigation on me that was closed 5 years ago. And so my question to everybody is, politicians start calling us. 2 days later, Politico comes out of the blue after 2.5 months of nothing with an attack job. And then 2 days after that, the Fair Political Practices Commission reopens an investigation after 5 years. It's almost like somebody owns Politico and owns parts of the California government and coordinate them to attack us once they knew we were getting somewhere. Now, when I just say that in a vacuum, that seems crazy. But when I tell you the Texas story and the New Hampshire story and my story, a pattern begins to emerge. That's all I'll say. If I do more, we go down Conspiracy Avenue. I'll just say really weird stuff, almost like someone doesn't want us to have a fair discussion and democracy is happening. Can't prove that, but boy, it seems that way. Somebody doesn't want us allowed to be able to just talk about things and educate voters. Maybe somebody who's convinced the media to never mention it says consent to the states. I don't know. Can't say.
Then what does that mean for the future of the Calexit movement? Because you're gaining momentum and steam right now. You have been over the last decade, but you've seen a jump in interest, really interest from both Californians and also elected leaders in the state. So what does that mean? I see you have plans for the future, and you're hosting an online influencer event. That's unique. That's something I haven't really heard about when it comes to the political sphere in this context, right? So as I scroll down, can you tell us more about that and other plans that you have?
Well, they can't stop us, to answer your question. They can confuse people and they can slow it down. The question becomes, though, if you and I picture like 12 people standing on a yacht, right? And they've lived on that yacht for 200 years. So they have some tradition and heritage invested in it. I'm on one end of the yacht, they're on another end. And every year I notice the water level comes up another inch. And I tell everybody, and they're like, whatever, we're still on the yacht floats, shut up. You're a naysayer. You're just being negative. And then one day the water comes up over the deck line, starts lapping up against my shoes. I go, we're sinking. Shut up. The yacht's worked for 200 years. You're just being negative. It's just a little water over the deck line. Calm down. One of us is right and one of us is dead wrong. So one of us doesn't want to believe the yacht can sink. We'll never accept that, no matter what, until it's halfway underwater. And one of us doesn't have nostalgia to the yacht and can recognize the water's level's been rising over the last decade. And in the last 2 years, it's finally gone over the deck line. And that means everyone's going to die who stays on this ship and we need to get off. Some people don't want to see that, and they won't until it's too late. There's a million stories of this happening in history, right? Noah's Ark. There's lots of stories of people saying, trouble's coming around the mountain. No, it's not. Shut up. And then they all die. My favorite one is Jewish Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht happened in the 1930s. There were two groups of Jews. So in one night in Germany, they smashed out the windows of everybody who owned a business who was Jewish in every city across all of Germany. They did it right in front of the cops, right in front of the legislators the next day. No politician, nobody complained. Nobody said anything. There were two groups of Jews at this moment. I've got the story from a rabbi. One group said, we better get the hell out. They attacked all of our stores in one night. The police were cool with it. All the politicians were cool with it. There's no justice level investigation. It's cool to victimize us. This is going to get really bad. Let's leave. All those Jews who did that had kids and grandkids and moved to America and Europe and are alive. Then there were another group of Jews who said, come on, relax. Right? I know Hitler wrote a book that he's going to round us up. He's not really going to do it. He's just trying to win an election. It's just words. He's just saying stuff to get people hyped up. Nobody's tried killing us off in big numbers since the medieval ages. This is modern times. We have TV, we have radio, airplanes. That kind of stuff can't happen now because we're in modern times. All those Jews who thought that are dead. A couple 100,000, couple million, 6 million, in fact, to be exact, right? 6 million people said, relax, calm down. All dead. So here we are again. The water's running over the deck line. No, it's not. Yes, it is. You're not ready to accept it. Other people are. I'm going to start building a life raft. We're going to live. I guess the rest of you are planning on dying. I'm sorry. That seems to be the way you're headed. I'm not going to risk the lives of 40 million people to try to save you, and I'm going to risk their life. Like I say, if you have a life raft next to the yacht and you have 4 kids, but you can only hold 2, do you stay on the yacht and sink with all 4 children because it'd be unfair? Or do you take the 2 kids you can and have nightmares for the rest of your life about the other 2 you couldn't, but you save everyone you possibly can? We all know what the answer would be in a situation. That's where we're at. They don't want to see it. They don't want to recognize that January 6th is a turning point. They don't want to recognize that when the Republican Party condemns it and then walks back their condemnation, that's massive instability. They don't want to recognize that when you have a country where one person gets elected and half the country says, I refuse to recognize the guy as my leader. And then the next time the other side says it, and then the next time the other side says it. And they don't want to recognize that somebody gets elected and they immediately start investigating and trying to jail the rivals. And then the other guy gets elected and he does the same thing. All instability, all failed democracies, all going a bad way, all a sign of chaos and things not working. Nobody wants to hear that. So we're winning. My example is Texas versus White. They would not admit that Texas versus White existed in 2016. Wouldn't do it. Doesn't exist. You're insane. The Constitution says, eventually we broke the entire media and now they have to admit Texas versus White exists. If you go back to 2016 to 2019, hell no, not doing it. Not going to mention that. We just kept pounding it and pounding it and pounding it and pounding it. And we got so many interviews where reporters go, you idiots, you don't know the law. And we mentioned Texas versus White that eventually they had to acknowledge it. So they have these machines they can use to kind of roll over us. What they don't have is the ability to put blindfolds over everyone's eyes as they see the water come over the deck line on the yacht. That's how we win. People can clearly see it's not working. People in government don't want to acknowledge that, but they can't force people to not have eyeballs and watch TV. It took me 2 minutes to sell Calexit 2 years ago. After Trump sent in the Marines, it took 30 seconds. We went from 2 minutes to 30 seconds after he sent in the Marines because all I had to do, I'm for secession. What? That's crazy. That's insane. That's radical. It is radical. By the way, a president sending combat-trained troops on a domestic protest, that's normal and says stability? No, it doesn't. So let's stick around and have more people get shot and killed? Oh, yeah. Then maybe you're in the same bucket with me, brother, sister, where radical stuff's happening and the only solution is a radical solution. We're way past talk and let's vote and hope it works out. So you're right. I'm radical. So's having a golf ball sized tumor next to your heart. Most doctors, if they found that, would say, we're having surgery tomorrow. We're cutting you open and we're going to rip this golf ball size. That's radical. Do you tell a cancer patient with a tumor the size of a golf ball, that's radical surgery, okay? Tomorrow's too quick. Let's wait a year. Let's talk about it. No, that's how you kill the patient. Sometimes radical problems require radical solutions or the patient dies. Here we are. Things are getting bad. I'm constantly accused of causing the Civil War, and I'm going, no, you got it wrong. Civil War is already coming. It's been started since the 1990s. It has to do with shifts in demography and the way that people think. I couldn't influence that. That's a 350 million person project over a 3-decade span. I didn't make that happen. We're clearly more divided than ever. January 6th happened. Half the country thinks it's cool and was just a barbecue. Other half is terrified. I didn't make that happen. So if you don't want to see those signs, sure. But if you are ready to see those signs, it's clear where this is going. We are the world's 4th largest economy. We don't have to sink. We don't have to condemn 40 million people. We can't save everybody. But when I look at the LGBTQ people, women, minorities, Latinos, who are all scared, and I go, I'm supposed to just condemn all these people because of nostalgia? That seems wrong. That seems like condemning all 4 of those kids to drown on the yacht because I don't want to make a tough decision. You save everybody you possibly can save. That's what a decent person does. That's all this is about. I was talking to a National Guard veteran, and he goes, whoa, I'm part of the National Guard, and I don't know about this. And I go, look, if America was working, nobody would be here. This isn't against the soldiers. You guys were willing to fight and die to protect an America that you thought existed. It doesn't anymore. We want that same place, and it can't be provided for us. So this isn't against soldiers. This is about we want what you thought you were protecting, and you were lied just like us and tricked like us. So we are moving forward. The biggest thing that pushes this is not the initiative. It's that Trump keeps getting elected. Republicans keep backing him. He keeps doing horrible things, and everybody in California still has to deal with it. He sent Marines in. That shocked the hell out of people. I didn't think we could go above the Palisades fire where people were lying on the ground charred and homeless. And he says, I don't want to send disaster aid because I don't really like you guys. I thought that would be the most egregious thing he could do. He upped the ante a month later. What do you think he's going to do over the next 3.5 years? Be Trump. And all of his backers are cool with this. Like I keep saying, no one in the Republican Party complained when he said no disaster assistance. No one said anything when he said, I'm going to send in the Marines. Or when he said, I'm going to send in the National Guard against the people and the will of California. Or when they took the first Latino senator and threw him to the ground. There was no pushback. There was no Republicans on Fox, Breitbart. There were no elected officials. There was no comment by Trump. There was no 10 House members getting together going, Mr. Trump, we back you, but you cannot treat fellow Americans this way. Not a word from the entire Republican Party about anything. Crystal knocked. Windows smashed. Cops stood right there, said nothing. It was a sign to get the hell out because things were going to be worse for them. We're there now. If people want to see it, they'll see it. And if they don't, because it seems depressing and sad and scary, I think there's a push to just stick your head in the sand and go, no, that's too horrible a future. I don't want to think about that. Anyways, plans for the future. Now to get to something happy, while we're waiting for the refile over the next month or two, we're going to be hosting an online influencer event that will, quote, break the internet. A famous rapper, Dusty the Rapper, Dusty Locane, I think is his name, will join 50 influencers each with 1 million followers. So that's about 50 million followers. And they're going to get a house and promote Calexit on one night. We've never had one person with 1 million followers promote Calexit. Dusty the Rapper has 7.1 million followers on Instagram. Then we'll have another 50 people, each with 1 million followers each. And it'll all be on one night promoting Calexit. We've never even had one person. Now we'll have 50. No one's even gotten that close. No one's got a 50th that close in 10 years. This is what we're talking about. Next, we're going to have a film festival where young people make movies to promote Calexit. And then the winning film appears in theaters around Cali. There's never been a Calexit film festival, ever. A festival of just movies about Calexit. There's never been a Calexit movie doing tours across California. Never happened. We'll also be announcing that we're lobbying politicians and we're getting approved for a blue ribbon panel. No one's ever lobbied politicians. No politicians have ever proposed the blue ribbon panel. We'll also be announcing that Calexit will be co-campaigning with high-level Democrats as they run for office, and we'll be campaigning along with them. Again, nobody's ever done that. And we'll have an online petition of 1 million Californians backing Calexit. No one's ever done anything like that. So if you look at that whole list, not one of those things in the past or in the future has ever been done by any Calexit group over the last decade. We've done all 15 of those items in the last 2.5 months, or will.
I gotta say that's a lot. That's a lot of exposure for the Calexit movement, and also it's something I've never seen when it comes to a movement that people generally talk about half-mindedly but half serious at the same time. Especially a generation that is so over all of this. I mean, I as recently as last year, I canvassed in a previous life, and speaking to people my age, people younger than me, everyone's so disillusioned where every answer I got, every single door was, this just doesn't, none of this is going to help me. I'm losing my rights already. Why vote? Like, why am I going to vote? Because nothing gets done. It's all gridlock. Republicans, Democrats just bicker at each other and they shut the government down. Why am I going to vote? That was the attitude. That disillusionment and the apathy was daily. And that was for a local congressional race that I canvassed for. And it was disappointing. I wasn't disappointed in the people themselves. I was just disappointed that we're at this level, that we are now at a point where people don't even vote locally because they just don't trust the system. And I got to say the majority of the people didn't not trust the system because of any voter fraud ideas. It was more so that their vote just doesn't count. Why vote? It was basically that. And that ranged from across all demographics. That ranged from women to people who worked in ag to healthcare. Everyone was just like, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I don't care. Sorry, like, we're already losing our rights anyway. Things are getting expensive and we're probably going to move. So it was very hard to hear and very disheartening. Just really made me wonder why I was doing what I was doing. And then seeing that the Calexit movement is actually focusing on the generation that is so apathetic to all of this. California is a very non-traditional place in that things happen here first, and then the trends start, and then they go across the country and across the world, right?
Sometimes.
It's really interesting. Yeah. And again, that's considering context and all that stuff, history. And I'm wondering what your take is on this, the fact that this is the first time that really all these things on this list would be happening for a political movement like the Calexit movement, where you're reaching out to Californians, to the youth, to people of all ages, actually, and to actual elected leaders who are, it sounds like in the Democratic Party, who are really open to hearing the Calexit movement's message. What's your take on that? Do you think that this truly is unprecedented, where maybe in our lifetimes we could see independent California?
Yeah. So the messed up thing, and this is going to sound freaking horrible. There's no really good way to say it. I'm not a sociopath. Okay. People laugh when I say that. When things are really horrible and depressing, it's the best time for Calexit. That's why I have to phrase it that way. I don't like human misery. I don't like people being scared. But when people finally see Humpty Dumpty's cracked open, that's when they're really ready to look at a solution. And until Humpty's cracked fully open, they're going to be like, well, maybe he can get back up, and maybe we can put him back on the wall, and maybe one more election and one more poll. You got to get to where you rock bottom before people are finally able to really embrace the conversation. And so when they get that bad, as depressing as it is, they're finally ready to hear Calexit's message, which is, this is Trump's America. Okay? They like him. It's a majority of the country. It's a majority of the states. It may not be a huge majority, but it's a majority of the states. States call elections, not people, period, in the Constitution. 35 to 45 states like what he does, like what he says, did it in 2015. It's a decade later, they still like it. This is his country. So in 2016, we said Trump won the election. This is Trump's America. Hell no, Mark. No, it's not. Hillary won the popular vote. Russia put him in. He doesn't represent America. No. The federal government's going to get him. He's a fluke. Republicans will turn on him. The federal system will put him in trial. I was there. I lived here. I was in the heart of the activists, meeting the most radical liberals. That's what everybody was saying for 4 years. All failure. Everything everyone said, total effing failure, complete failure. Republicans did not turn against him. He was not knocked out. He could come back. He ran multiple races. He built an establishment, and 2 impeachment and 7 federal and state trials all disappeared. And he led an insurrection, and his numbers went up. So this is Trump's America, a majority of states and a technical majority of people like him. It's been this way for 10 years. They're not changing their mind. You can see the horrible stuff he's done to California, and none of your fellow Americans there protested or were upset or bothered to say anything on your behalf. And then there's a poll by LA Times showing half of Republicans view you as not American because you live here. That came out 8 months ago. Not 10, 8 months. And so there's a lot of these signs there. One of my favorite things was after Trump sent in the Marines, you had a bunch of Sacramento legislators get together, Los Angeles assembly members, but they were in Sacramento. So LA reps, but in Sacramento. And it was here's 30 of us, and we're the government of California, and we're responding to Trump sending in the Marines. The whole thing was, Trump, stop. Stop, sir, stop. It looks so impotent by the technical meaning, so weak. If you read the comments, people were going, hold on. Trump's sending in the Marines on us, and the best we can do is have our politicians say, please, Mr. Daddy Trump, stop hurting us. It was all of them. They were just going, stop, sir, stop. That you can't compel him to stop. You're an assembly member. He's president. That means nothing. Everything he said means nothing. They were literally begging him. And then they're going, and we hope people be calm, quiet. Don't aggravate him. And by the way, we're here in the assembly and we got your back, Sacramento. If he arrests you or beats you up, we'll pursue a legal case with him. After you're in unlimited detention, after you've been beaten up, after you've been disappeared, we will come with legal protection for you. Great. So it was a bunch of crying and whining, couldn't do nothing. He doesn't have to listen to you, look like you're ignorant of the federal system and understanding that, and then saying, hey, I got your back after horrible things happen to you. It looked dumb as hell. And that was the biggest collection of California Assembly people and their biggest response to Trump sending in the Marines. I've been telling people, we have people fighting World War II with World War I strategies. Let's get 1 million guys masked up and run at them. They have tanks and airplanes and chemical warfare and artillery. That doesn't work anymore. Let's try it anyways, because this is what we've been doing the last century. They're using a toolbook that no longer exists. They're thinking that they can protest the federal government and Americans will listen and turn on them, and they think that they can use the legal system. All of that has been disproven with Trump. It's basically a decade later. He survived all the legal attempts, multiple elections. He's had the worst PR ever, and he's more popular than ever. This is who the country is, and you're tied to these people. And by the way, they like it when he says, I don't like how you handle climate change. I don't like how you handle LGBTQ. You're too nice to these transgender kids. Why are you letting all these Mexicans walking around without harassing them for papers every 5 minutes? Did you see the video where ICE stopped a guy in a brand new truck because he looked Mexican? And they made him get out, and he goes, I'm a second-generation citizen and an Army veteran. Why'd you pull me over? And then they kept harassing him to confirm. They stopped him because he looked Mexican, period. That should shake you. It shakes me. This is the country we're part of. Totally legal, and no one's going to say or complain about it. You can get yanked out of your car by ICE because you look Mexican. I could be wearing a suit, driving around. This guy was driving a brand new truck. Proper lights, plates, lights, everything. Totally respectful. Get out of the car. Why? We think you're an illegal. Why? I'm a citizen. I speak perfect English. Here's my veteran's card. We're still checking you out. Why? You look Latin. That's called racial profiling, completely legal in America, happening now. So, Crystal knocked. You have your politicians. They can't really do anything to stop this. It's a federal system. And people should be this dismayed and upset and depressed because that's what it takes to get this. We've been saying this since 2016. Federalism trumps all state law, period. And when the Republicans own the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court, and the presidency, that level of unified power, the Republicans haven't seen since 1930s, over 100 years ago. So people are like, oh, the next election, what? They haven't had this much power in over 105 years. You cannot do anything when you own all four branches, the executive, the judiciary, and both of the houses. There's nothing you can do. It was Hakeem Jeffries basically admitted that about 2 weeks after they lost, Trump became president. He goes, we're going to pursue the issues we think we can win on. What he was saying is we're not going to fight for anything because we don't have the votes in the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, or the presidency, so we can do nothing. They basically just admitted it. So you have people admitting it's failure. You can see politicians flailing about as they're completely politically impotent. The signs are there. All the windows been smashed out. It's just, do you want to recognize what it is? No Republicans complaining. Federal government can do this. I was shocked that there was no Republicans, not one, who came out and said, you can't treat fellow Americans this way. You can't deny disaster assistance. You can't send foreign combat trained troops on domestic Americans. There was no love from 45 states and the party that runs this country to anybody here.
That's so disappointing because I mentioned this before. We've talked about this extensively. We feed the nation. We do. I mean, you can't grow the crops that we have really anywhere else, almost anywhere else in this country. On top of feeding the nation, we fund entire state governments with our money. And it's frustrating that we provide so much without even really asking for much back, other than just what's due to us, right? And you have an entire country, a majority of the country, that genuinely hates California. Makes no sense. And I don't mean this in any way to belittle anyone. I just don't think about other places because I'm busy. I have my own stuff here. So to hear this hate coming from out of left field makes no sense to me. Majority of people here are independent, who align with the Democrat Party because of social values and because we don't care about what people do if they're two consenting adults. Makes no sense. Makes no sense to think about that on my free time. But it's so disappointing because where do we go from here? When we have an entire country that hates us for no reason, for no good reason, in my estimation, in my understanding of things, what do? Is independence really our only option left? Because we're losing political power. We are sucked dry out of our tax money that goes across the continent to DC and then dispersed everywhere else, right? When we don't even get majority of that back. So between getting huge projects that would have been transformational for the Central Valley, for example, like the high-speed rail, which is funded by our own money anyway, seeing all this stuff and just constant either ignoring or hatred or insults about who we are as Californians, it grows on you in a bad way. It rubs you the wrong way, and then it makes me think, why? Why are we putting up with this? We are the fourth largest economy on the planet. We have 40 million people. We have some of the best cities, best places on earth, right? We can grow.
Is any of that mentioned on Fox News in the last 3 decades?
Probably not. And I'm willing to bet on that.
There you go. Yeah. That's your answer.
None
of what you said is mentioned on Fox News or Breitbart or by Trump or any of his staff or any elected official in the last 30 years. So they literally don't know what you're talking about because they never hear about it. They see the opposite. Watch Fox for a month. You'll fully understand. Just watch it for a month. Be ready to be depressed. Every story is about how our politicians are boogeymen and we're out to destroy America. If that's all you heard year after year, yeah, I think you'd come around to hating us, seeing us as the boogeyman. This is what I ask people. They go, well, Republicans won't let us go. We're the world's fourth largest economy. I go, show me where any Republicans said that in 3 decades. You can go back 30 years. Show me any elected official in any Republican state, local, state, federal, whatever, any official, any TV show, any time where they said that. And then said, apparently we know how to run economies well, right? Because our economy is stronger than anything they did. No one's ever said that. I just talked to Irish radio today, and they go, they'll never let you go. The Republicans are about money. And I go, what makes you think they know what you're talking about? If I said oranges are taste like lemons, oranges are bitter, they're not sweet, they taste like lemons, and I said that for 30 years, you going to believe me that I secretly meant I love oranges and I always thought they felt sweet? I just said the opposite thing every single day for 3 decades? No, humans don't operate that way. You repeat the same thing again and 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 again. You never hear anything else, and that's what everybody says. Yeah, that's the truth. It's not that hard to imagine. I was an ex-Republican. If you look at the people that voted for Trump in California, a lot of them are in the Central Valley. The area that's most dependent on Obamacare is the Central Valley. The thing that's most going to get cut under new Trump is Obamacare. The people who are going to be hurt, the people who voted for him the most. So it's not like we haven't seen sheer stupidity before. People who need Obamacare the most are the ones who are most enthusiastic for Trump, who will cut them. It's a lot of people in the Central Valley destroying their livelihood. Additionally, the big, beautiful bill passes a lot of benefits up to the upper class, not the middle class. The middle class did not grow in strength Trump's last term. They don't care. It doesn't have to make sense, right? America went into debt. Republicans under Reagan loved putting the country in the debt and then talking about how they're growing the economy. This is a party that has built up a reputation that they are stoic and logical when it comes to dollars, and then continue to do some of the dumbest financial moves ever and continue to get elected for it. So I'm like, we give them too much intelligence and too much agency. Watch their shows. That's what they think. And they're not more intelligent or informed than that at all. At all.
When you brought that up, it made me realize that I'm actually not comfortable with someone who really is creating laws that I have to abide by, from Kansas or from Arkansas or from Kentucky or from even Illinois, place that I love. I went to college there. They don't know our issues. They don't know how we should govern ourselves, and they don't know the specifics about how an economy as large as California works, right? So why are we allowing people from another part of this country, really the continent, why are we allowing them to make laws that we have to abide by when their own state governments are being funded by us? Shouldn't we be making more making more decisions when it comes to the economics of the country, if we are in fact the economic engine of the country that brings in more than any other state? So why are we? I think it just goes back to the premise that this system is broken. And I think what we're seeing right now, just worldwide, but here too, is that the systems that we've had for a couple hundred years at least are all breaking. It's a different world now. It's a different world. People think differently. Technology's completely changed everything. And the way we govern is dying. It's dying in that we can't expect the same outcomes that we had in 1980, 1940 even. It just makes no sense that we are going to keep with this apathy, and things are going to get darker and darker and darker when we could revolutionize everything and change everything and actually have more direct democracy and more say in how our tax money is being spent. And if it's local, that's even better, right? I mean, could you imagine what Fresno and Bakersfield would look like with a state having the country of an independent California having 80 to 100 billion at least annually, right? What would our cities look like? What would the Central Valley look like? What would the Inland Empire look like? All these places where we're experiencing homelessness and all these issues that California has that's infamous for, right? Do you think that we could fix those, let's say in 10 years, if we actually became independent and stopped sending our money to DC and kept it for ourselves?
It'd only take 2. So for immigration, America hasn't done immigration reform since the late 80s. We'd have it done within a year. We have too many undocumented people and too many Latinos in the legislature to sit on that. So America can sit on that for 50 years. We'd have it done right away. Same thing with, we already have laws on transgender and LGBTQ and gun rights. They're just struck down by the federal government. So we wouldn't need to do anything new, just not have our laws struck down. Finally, a lot of issues we'd be willing to move forward on. Part of the problem is that the federal government America doesn't have the same issues we do. So they're not as concerned, right? We're very concerned about undocumented immigrants and climate change and clean air and clean water and LGBTQ. They're not. They're just not. That's not important. Also, we're very concerned about international trade. They're not. That's just not that important. Our economy is about 45% connected to international trade. The America overall is about 8%. So it's just not that big an issue, right? Like I can afford to ignore these things and not really look into them. We can't afford to ignore undocumented immigrants in California, or Latinos, or gay people, or lesbians, or climate change, or the air quality. We don't have that, or the international. We don't have those options, but in America they do. Like gay issues and climate change and being cool to undocumented immigrants does not affect me if I'm in Iowa, Kentucky, Ohio, Utah, Missouri, Minnesota. Just doesn't. That's how culturally out of line we are. And this used to work for a while until about the 1990s when it really became clear. And really the divide happened with Trump. Californians were willing to put up with a lot of disappointment in America because there was a belief that we were going in one direction towards progress. Trump cracked that belief open and said, maybe we're not going to keep progressing. Maybe we're going to regress. I remember growing up as a child and I thought the debates over immigration were over. The debates over gay people, the debates over climate change were over. He came in and said, no, we're redebating everything. We're going to debate on if we should have immigrants. We're going to debate on if we should deal with climate change. We're going to immigrate on if we can discriminate against people. We're going to have those debates again. We would never have those debates in California ever. The last time we did was the 1990s, 30 years ago. America just said, we want to enter into a permanent period of debate on all these essential issues. You guys decided 30 years ago. That's what's going on. And we're realizing we're massively culturally out of alignment. And a lot of people like me lived through 91 to 98 and would prefer to be dead than to go back. And we see Donald Trump taking America there at Mach 50. Sorry, man. I know it's not always a good time, but there's a solution. For everything depressing, there's a solution. It is radical. It is a tumor. We are going to have surgery. It is going to hurt, but you'll live. There's a way to live. There's a way to survive. There's a way to move on. Okay, happy stuff. Game-changing events. 50 influencers, 100 million followers, one incredible night. Let's keep scrolling. An event designed to break the internet, one night, 50 influencers, each with 1 million followers, all promoting Calexit. There's never been a promotional event like this in over 10 years. If you have the email, we have a website promoting it. We have a commercial promoting it, and we have a pitch deck. Here's some slides from the pitch deck. That is Dusty the rapper. As you can see, 7.1 million followers. Audience is focused on 18 to 35. That's Dusty wearing a California hat, and then that's him with Ice Cube and another famous rapper. Just pointing out that he knows famous people in hip hop and has a lot of people. He'll be hosting the event. By the way, Dusty barely had ever heard of Calexit before us, and then Dr. X converted him into a hard line supporter. So Dr. X has this ability to reach people and turn them, and he did. Dusty's all about this now, massive proponent. By the way, Dusty was one of the people who pushed us in the direction of just go for the blue ribbon panel. I mean, yeah, you can get the vote, but if you can get the politicians to do that, that's game over. Win there too. Let's scroll down a little bit. Audience and reach, combined reach, TikTok live strategy, TikTok dance challenge, real-time creator studio, demographics, Gen Z, millennials, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I don't really like that term, but whatever, forward, urban-minded. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Event highlights, red carpet entrance. Let's scroll up a little bit. Red carpet entrance, live DJ, comedy hour, why we Calexit, creator studio and interview room, interactive visual arts and fashion showcase, cannabis, EV, and lifestyle brand pop-ups. I can confirm that we're giving away free champagne and cannabis products. Dusty has like 15 companies that sponsor him. And so he just told them I'm doing this. And they're like, here, give out free stuff will people buy more. It's marketing. Dusty's signature dance challenge. All right, number 2, Film Fest.
You got to check that out.
Film Fest. And again, we've never had one person with 1 million followers do this. we're going to have a guy with 7, and then he's going to be backed by 50 others. So there's nothing even a 50th that big has happened in 10 years. Nothing like this on the scale. That's all Dr. X made that happen. Film Faster 48. So it's a film festival. You tell about a bunch of people, hey, you're going to make a movie about Calexit and you have 48 hours to do it. So it's whatever you can do in 2 days. And then you have a premiere where you show all the Calexit films. And then the winning film is shown in theaters around California. If you get the email, there's a commercial and there's a website for that. We've never had one Calexit movie. Now we'll have 20 to 30. We've never had a Calexit movie shown around California. Now there will be one. Those 2 things have never happened before. If we scroll down a little bit more, what if you had 48 hours? Oh, by the way, it's being led by Brian Oliver, big name in Hollywood. It's also backed by New Republic Pictures, a full movie studio. They do things like Mission Impossible and all the Transformers movies, in addition to other movies. It's produced by Providence Film Group. So this isn't a little thing. Yes, it's kind of an art house film, but these are heavyweights backing this. And the reason you get to do this is that if you win the film fest, you get your name listed as in a credential in a major film. So the next Mission Impossible movie that comes out, you could be listed as a credentialed member. And if you work in Hollywood, that's everything. That's your resume. You don't have resumes. You have credits at the end of the movie. It basically means you get a career. So that's on the line for everybody, plus $3,000 to $5,000 if they win. So we think there'll be a lot of young minds really trying to push it. Also considering everybody's scared since the Marines came. So I don't think we're going to have to encourage people that much to come up with dynamic movie material.
What are the requirements for this? Can it be any style? Can it be animation, or is it strictly live action? What are the details about that?
I think it can be any style. I know that if you go to the Faster 48, if we could scroll up again at the website. Yeah, go to Film Faster 48, and they'll have the details. The website walks you through. By the way, we have an expert who's a veteran at running these events, running ours. So the person that's going to be running this one has done a lot of these before. So we got one of the most experienced people. We're bringing him out of Louisiana. He's done a ton of these. And so we're having a pro organize this. In addition to all the Hollywood big wigs you can see, heavyweights that are part of this.
Yeah, there are some pretty notable names here. That's impressive.
This was the other one. We went to the California Democratic Convention. We were invited to speak at the official Black Caucus of the California Democratic Party Convention. That didn't happen, but we did have a dinner next door, and 2/3 of the official Black Caucus of the Democratic Party of official California came, and we talked about Calexit for about 45 minutes. So weren't able to speak there, but we got 2/3 of the Black Caucus. Kathleen Harmon, doctor, she's known as the Queen of the Democrats, has officially agreed to be part of our initiative campaign. So this is a high-ranking Democrat with massive connections who's agreed to publicly be part. That's never happened before. No one's ever gone to the Democratic Convention before, and no one's ever spoken to about 20 legislators at the same time before. We also met Maxine Waters. We met Betty Yee. We talked to Eleni Koulounakis and Coolidge. So we met a lot of assembly people, governor candidates, etc. Like I said, everybody was cool except for Eleni Koulounakis. She goes, I can't be seen with you guys, and ran off. I'm not joking. We have video. But every other Democrat was like, tell me what you're going to. They weren't scared. They weren't running. They were willing to listen. There was no endorsements. But when I tell reporters that, reporters are like, whoa, because that's not supposed to happen at all. Everybody was cool talking with us. Not one. Everybody's supposed to act like Eleni. Only Eleni did that, and 30 other people did it. So when I explain that to political reporters, they're like, oh, damn, that is a change.
Do you foresee a change in how the media will cover the Calexit movement? Because it seems like lawmakers are more open to actually being seen with the movement itself and openly speaking with representatives from it. So do you think there will be a change in that? There
will be some change in the media the more high-ranking names come forward. There will not be a complete change in the media because there is someone behind the scenes who doesn't want people to have this conversation while acting like we live in a democracy. That person group isn't going to change, but the more billionaires and politicians you bring in, the more positive publicity you get. So I would say we'd end up in a publicity war where we don't have a clear win, but they're no longer winning either. It'd be like 50% us and 50% them. And what happens is the public gets confused and has to start thinking for themselves, which is what we want, which is a win for us. Because whenever you start looking at the facts of Calexit, you always end up a fan of Calexit. That's why we said, get the blue ribbon panel. They go, well, that's not a vote. Yes, it is. Anybody that looks into this has to come forward to this. I think we've talked about this. Nobody beats me in a debate on this. No one. I've debated about 550 people, not one. What happens is when they start to lose, they go, well, I don't know. And then they walk off and they consider that I didn't win the debate. That's cheating. When you just say, I'm not going to talk anymore, and then you walk off, you didn't win the debate. Okay, you didn't. That's just you bowing out and quitting, which is a way of called forfeiting in a competition. So nobody's won. Nobody can challenge the facts when you go on to it. That's why we're like, look, just talk about it. And I think that's why somehow the media is like, don't let them know it's legal. They'll actually start talking about this. They'll actually take it seriously. If we can just make sure they don't know that it says consent to the states and they don't know about Erwin Chemerinsky, who said it's a majority vote, then they'll continue to think this is just a pipe dream. Right? I'm supposed to be a hippie, smoking a giant blunt and talking about how, yeah, man, it'd be cool if we were independent, bro. I'm not supposed to be a serious policy analyst with 25 years in government. I should automatically know this is a silly, stupid idea and run away. I'm not. People like Dr. X, who's a CEO with 6 publicly traded companies, is not supposed to be hanging out with me. People who ran the end of life, a very successful political campaign, should not be talking to me. They all should have met me and go, that guy's crazy and stupid, and ran away. Doesn't happen. They stick around. So if you know that you're going to lose, the best thing you can do is lie to the public and mislead them so that they don't actually see what's going on. Can't prove that, but yeah. Anyways, let's keep going with fun times. Dr. Harmon was happy to be here. Oh, here we go. So right there, that is Dr. Harmon with the incredible looking hats, blue and white. She's a big, big hat lady. She's out of San Diego, about 96 years old. She's helped many people get elected, and she's called the Queen of the Democrats. Word on the streets when we met her was someone named Miss Harris, before she ran for president in California, had to go meet Miss Harmon first before she could campaign. Just saying. Someone named Miss Harris had to go meet Miss Harmon before she could campaign in San Diego. Just saying. Now that's Tony Atkins in the top left-hand corner, highest ranking LGBTQ official, also governor candidate. The next one over in the middle is Shirley Weber, third highest ranking politician. Directly underneath that is her with Barbara Lee, one of the most famous members from California in Congress. And then that's her with President Joseph Biden of America. So high-ranking people that she knows, called the Queen of the Democrat. People have to come see her. And then there she is again with me and Dr. Xavier holding up a award from Calexit. So we're saying, why is somebody who knows Biden and Harris and Shirley Weber and Tony Atkins officially joining our team and hanging out with us? Nothing like that has ever happened. Nobody with that level of connections would spit on us if we were struck by lightning and lit on fire. Now they're officially working with us. Let's scroll a little more. There you go. We have Chef. If just 7 politicians. In over a decade, we have never been able to talk to any sitting or connected politician. Now with Dr. Harmon, those politicians are calling us. If you scroll down a little bit, that's an article. You can read more about her. They know Miss Harmon. There's San Diego Mayor Gloria Todd saying they know Miss Harmon at City Hall. They know Miss Harmon in Sacramento and in the White House. So that's the mayor of San Diego saying Harmon's so well known. They know her in the White House and Sacramento and here. She's gotten many people elected, including Shirley Weber, Assembly Member Weber, San Diego Council Member Montgomery Steep, and Malia M. Cohen, the State Board of Equalization. Let's keep scrolling down. That's a little scene from us at the Democratic Party showing we were there. That is on the far left, a random Democrat, the Caucasian lady with the blue dress. She had never heard of Calexit. She freaked out. We sold it to her in 2 minutes, and she became a lifelong supporter. It took 2 minutes to flip her from what to, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm on board. Again, it was a lot of saying, you didn't see the Marines, you didn't see, the Palisades fire, you didn't see the polls saying they hate us. You just put a couple facts in people's head and they flip. That's Betty Yee, a high-ranking politician running for governor. That's Eleni Koulounakis, another high-ranking politician, lieutenant governor. And then on the far right is the 2/3 of the Black caucus from the California Democratic Party who came to our event where we talked about Calexit. So making inroads, proof.
A lot of networking.
A lot of networking that's never happened in a decade. Here's more networking. We brought on a DC insider, JJ Ames, has been the FEMA head speechwriter for a while. He's met Joe Biden. He's met Donald Trump. He's been in DC for 40 years. He teaches political science at a university in Oklahoma. He's 1 billion% dedicated to Calexit and has now officially joined our board as our expert on messaging. I'll be doing an interview with him this afternoon on messaging. We're actually talking to somebody who's worked in DC and did speech writing and messaging for federal governments, is directing us on how to do strategic messaging here. We've never had somebody who could do strategic messaging like that or had the background to say how to do it. And now we do. And he's already run out the whole thing on how to do it. And I'll be doing a show with him. So never met someone of that quality. Someone like that has never been hanging out with us. And now we have somebody with 4 decades of experience in the federal government helping us out with messaging, et cetera, in addition to his other connections. So, and he basically called us up because he said he's been talking to people in politics. He has a lot of connections, and it's just clear this is going this way. So he came to Calexit on his own, not me. Came to Calexit on his own, being in DC for 4 decades, said this is going to happen, then started looking and found us. By the way, I did an interview with him. If you go to my channel, Marcus Ruiz Evans, you can see the interview with him. He was in Afghanistan in 2015. He argued with the CIA station chief, that's head of CIA in Afghanistan, station chief, about if America was going to enter into a civil war. In 2015, he had this debate. He was told, you're silly and stupid and don't know what you're talking about. 2 years later, the CIA station chief called him on a phone quietly and said, you're right. Now, I don't have the names, but JJ says that happened. So unless he's lying, a CIA station chief who worked in a civil war in Afghanistan has now recognized that America's close to civil war. Won't say it publicly, did tell JJ. It's in the interview. It's up to you if you want to believe him. I believe him because Barbara Walters out of the University of San Diego was a analyst for the Central Intelligence Agency. She created the metrics that would tell CIA agents if there was going to be a civil war. So if you're going to send spies into Angola, they wanted to know, is this country about to go into a civil war? She's had this machine that correctly predicts how close countries are to civil war. And it is the official advising machine for the CIA agents for the last 5 years. According to her machine, America now meets all the metrics for civil war. Just type in Barbara Walters, CIA analyst, civil war coming. She's been saying this for the last 2 years. People didn't really want to hear it. Her machine that correctly predicts civil war for the CIA that they rely on to keep their agents not dead or unalived is now saying America meets all the criteria. She's been saying this for the last 2 years. She's getting marginal price. Let's move on. One of the top advisors, the presidents, and other high-ranking officials of the Democratic Party is now saying completely dedicated to Calexit. So he's on LinkedIn, Blue Sky. You can see an interview on why he joined Calexit. You can see an interview with him on suggestions for messaging. That was the first time we ever had that. And then we did a 4-hour review of all the answers to policy questions for Calexit. By the way, he agreed with all of our answers. So they're like, what about taxes, the military, Social Security, schooling, trade? We had an answer for everything. I ran it through him for 4 hours, and it was yep. That'll all work. So we spent 10 years putting that together, and we had a federal guy, worked for FEMA, worked for the feds for 4 decades, basically back up all our research. Live on video. Don't have to take my word for it. You'll see his face on the video on my channel. It's all there. 1 million signers of an online petition. Now, this is not legally binding, but we think if we can get 1 million online signatures, that would impress the hell out of people. Like we were talking about, if you got 50,000 people to call 2 legislators, we could have the blue ribbon panel. 1 million Californians saying, we want this petition. That's twice the number of signatures we had together for the petition. Anyways, it's up on change.org. It's there. We're going to promote this on the Influencer Night and the film festival. We think we'll get a lot of traction with that. No one's ever had 100,000 people sign a petition for Calexit. Never happened. This will be 10 times that size. This is what I'm saying. We're not jumping in incrementally. Here's step 1. We're coming in at step 14 with the projects that we're doing. Let's scroll. We're almost done. Calexit app. There's an app coming. It's being designed now where you can find out information and how to register and other events. There's never been a Calexit app ever. So one's coming. That's another big change.
Will supporters and people who want more information about Calexit be able to interact on the app?
Yes. The app is designed to do everything so that you can just go to the App Store, click the Calexit app, and then you're linked into everything. Dr. X has a lot of computer programs that work for him, and they're already working on this. That's how he's able to get one of the top 5 cryptocurrency experts on the planet to go work. He knows everybody, and he's somehow able to handshake, horse trade, smoke-filled room, negotiate all these people to do stuff. So he's like, I got one of the top 5 crypto experts to work for us. How'd you do that? Well, it's a long story. It's 5 hours of iGrid. I horse traded and said, I'll do this and he'll do that. And then I'll hook him up with this. And then I got him to say yes. That is Dr. X's power. I don't know more how he pulls it off than that. Seeing him do it, and I'm like, how the hell did you do that? Like, he's the one that convinced Dr. Harmon to work with us. And he's the one that got the Faster 48 film to work with us. And he's the one that convinced Dusty the rapper to do this. So none of that would happen without him. I don't have those connections. I couldn't convince those people. I can do hour-long policy discussions, right? That works for a small fraction of the population. He's able to just go schmooze people, and they're like, you know what? I never thought of it, but sure, let's go ahead and secede, dude. How did you get him to do that? And he's like, and he's always modest. He's always like, I don't know, just, do my thing, and I'm not that smart, and I'm not that talented, and I guess people just like me. And I'm like, you never get a straight answer out of him. It's way too humble. He could sell ice to Eskimos in the middle of the winter. That's why a lot of this stuff is happening, because we bet on building and the corporation was built underneath him. We rebuilt the corporation. That's why it has all those professionals. That's why we're meeting all these people. It's all him. All I had to do was convince him that this is legit. So we talked for hours, and then I went to his house, and one day he had 3 people come out and grill me, 3 of his smartest friends, and they were trying to poke holes. We beat every single one of them debate, to the point that one of them got so mad he just stormed out of the house and drove off. Called back an hour later and apologized. The second day, we had another event, and Dr. X invited 30 people. Same thing, smart people. All of us peppered its questions, blew that all away. Everybody was on board. After that, he was fully on board, because we got through all those gatekeepers. He sent all of his toughest questioners to us, and we just rocked every single one of them, to the point that a couple of these guys had never been defeated in debate, and they didn't know how to handle it. And they left storming, pissed off. And I go, I'm sorry. And he goes, you don't need to be. You won. Okay.
And now he's here.
Now he's here.
Quite literally building everything up, right?
Building everything. And by the way, all those people who we won in debate eventually came back around and joined. Even the upset ones. Yeah, every single one of them. So, like I said, once you look into the facts, there is no other way to look at this. Most people think this is crazy because they are misinformed. They don't know it's legal. They don't know that we have the money. They don't know we could easily transition the military. That they don't know we already have the laws and the infrastructure in place. They don't know that we have governors that already do treaties and trade deals. They don't know that stuff. And they go, oh, this is crazy and insane. And you just go, why? and they'll say things and you just start knocking them off. Well, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I literally did this 25 times at the California Democratic Convention. People thought they had me, and they go, well, what if they cut off the Colorado River? Colorado River is drying up. It's going to be dead in a year anyways, according to the people who run it. I don't know about that. What about if they cut off our water? Most of our water comes from us. It's just put into ag, and then we ship it out. No, I don't know about that. Secession's illegal. No, it's not. There's a court case called Texas versus White. What? That's the way every single debate goes. Every single person who's opposed to this doesn't know 80% of the facts and has been misinformed. And that's why they're sure. They're like, this is crazy. You start knocking that down, and their eyes get either really big and they get mad and leave because you've broke their worldview, which people don't like, or they realize, like you have, things are different now, and you need to start looking into big ideas. No one wins a debate. No one. That's why I don't quit, because every time we get an audience, we win. The only thing they have is to lie to people about the facts behind us. It's not legal. He must not know the law or the government. You can't do this. All lies. That's all they got. That's why I'm encouraged. I mean, if I was actually losing debates or losing a plank on anything, there might be something. We lose nothing on any argument on any issue ever. So that's why we know it's just a matter of time. People didn't think women should vote. People didn't think black people should vote. People didn't think Latin people should vote. People used to think that smoking was healthy for you. Those were all stupid ideas. Eventually, people realized that that was wrong. Like, it took decades, right? They were talking about women had the right to vote in the late 1800s. It wasn't until 1910, 40 years later, that it happened. They were talking about how black people are full humans in the 1830s. It wasn't until the 1870s where slavery started being taken down. You could tell in 1830, black people are humans. Okay, it was 40 years later before the change. You could tell in the late 1870s, women have just as much intellectual voting capability as men. It was another 4 decades. So you can have this truth be recognized, and it can still be a while before everybody gets it. Now everybody on earth recognizes black people are equal to white people and Latin people, and everybody gets that. 1870, that was debatable. Women can vote. They can run for office. 1870, that was debatable. Now it's not. So when we look at this and we look at all the facts that are lined up for us, we're going, how are we going to lose? Or is this just, it's going to be a while of getting through the ignorance? Eventually, the argument that slavery okay died. Eventually, the argument that women are inferior to men died. If you were in 1870 and you were saying women will be able to vote, it would be easy to laugh in your face and say, you're ridiculous. That's a crazy idea and will never happen. Anybody who said that would be 100% wrong. And yet in 1870, every expert, every politician, every PhD probably would have said that. And everyone would be wrong. Same thing with slavery. Same thing with smoking. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are these times in history where all the experts get it wrong. And a super obvious thing that only a few activists are talking about becomes the truth. Clean drinking water. That used to be a thing only activists promoted. Then they got a hold of FDR. And he was like, no, we'll make this a national standard. You go back to the 1870s, they didn't even believe everybody needed clean drinking water or had a right to it. By 1935, that changed. Now everybody knows we need to have clean drinking water. So I look at Calexit as, it's super obvious, but it's one of those things where I'm in the 1870s saying women are just as smart as men. No, they're not. They are, but it will take a while to get people past that tradition. But eventually they'll break. How do we know that in 1870? Because women are as smart as men. That was still true in 1870, 1880, 1890, 1900. It was true every year. It wasn't until 1910 that people go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. For 40 years, there were people who were talking the truth and were told they were crazy. Right? If you go back 3 decades before the Civil War, you were insane if you were saying black people are equal and slavery's wrong. That's madness. What are you talking about, man? Everybody knows they're inferior. Everybody knows this is cool. Everybody was wrong. It was crazy people like John Smith or whatever who led that rebellion who actually had it correct. They called him, and there was some rebellion for the slaves led by a white guy. They said he was insane. He was actually completely correct. Takes time. You're not allowed to beat your wife to death. And when cops are called for a domestic protest event, you should actually get involved and save the wife from being dead. That was not accepted until the late 70s. So women would call the police would show up at the door, she would be battered near death, and the husband would open the door and go, "What? This is a personal excuse." And the cops would go, "Okay, we're out." And then she'd die. Totally accepted in every city and all police forces across America for 150 years. It wasn't until the 70s that people started going, my God, if you're a police officer and you walk up to the house and you see this woman beaten to death, do something. That was a new idea. If you were saying that in the 1950s, you were crazy, insane. By 1980, everybody knew that was wrong to not do. So here we are again, Calexit. America's falling apart. We're punished for who we are. We're abused, and we get nothing for it. It's super obvious. And there's a legal way out. That's how I view this. It's like, why do you stick with this? Well, there were these other things that people said you're crazy and wrong, and it took a while to happen, and every single one of them was right. We were saying since 2016, this is Trump's America. Nobody in California wanted to hear that. Now everyone in California recognizes this is Trump's America. We said in 2016, the federal system cannot protect you from him once he's in charge of the federal system. Nobody wanted to believe that. Now everybody gets it. Just like with Texas versus White, I was saying they wouldn't recognize it. And then eventually, over a couple of years, they finally admitted it exists. We slowly win because the truth is the truth. And if all you have is lying and misleading, eventually you'll lose.
It's the build up for the Calexit movement up till now where it is. It's big. It's big. There's been a lot of progress, and it just goes to show that there's an app being downloaded because there is enough content and there are enough events and communications between members of the movement. So it's interesting to see that there's an actual solitary app that kind of condenses everything and puts it all in one place so people can access it. We're as close to it as we are going to get. And I just think that it's interesting seeing all of this stuff happening and culminating, and the chaos in this country really kind of diverting everyone's attention to alternative ways to be and to govern themselves. There are a couple more things.
Well, we'll have a political action committee.
Yeah.
So we filed for a political action committee, and we'll be having a professional grade TV commercial made for a political action committee. J.J. Ames, the DC insider, said that besides the blue ribbon panel, another way to get an automatic win for Calexit is to just have a quality TV commercial for a PAC. People in California, especially in the political realm, have been trained that when they see a PAC commercial, you're legit. So a PAC commercial for California secession will automatically tell all the power brokers we have arrived. Just the commercial. It's like the blue ribbon panel. It's not the win, but it's such a significant event that it will crack minds open. And so we have people in Hollywood and professionals and some people who know how to make PACs, and we'll be releasing a PAC commercial soon, which no one's ever done, and which from our understanding and our connections with politicians will crack some heads wide open. Figuratively, not physically. I mean, figuratively, the mind is open, not violence. Want to be clear for anybody? Yeah.
Especially in this day and age where anyone could come and report anything, and it's got to err on the side of caution 100%.
We're not for violence. We've spent so long figuring out a legal path. That's what bothers me, is that the media won't admit it. And I'm like, we've worked really hard to let people know that there's a legal way to do this, and we're not crazy and we're not violent, and we're saying use democracy to achieve this. And you guys can't even acknowledge that? That's the last step. Anyways, we're looking for some volunteers. We need some, if you scroll down, that graphic wasn't so great, but a social amplifier. We need people to repost our content. Also, we need people to host a house party. Anywhere in California, we got about 10 to 15 people doing it. 2 in Palm Springs, 4 in LA, 2 in the Bay Area, and 2 in San Diego. And it's basically, we'll get together. You agreed to let us use your place or a local coffee shop or a park, but you're the local hosting it. We invite everybody. We show up. We bring the snacks. We bring everything. We do all the talking. You're just the local in the area who says you're willing to host it. And then we have a house party where we inform people about our plans for the future and things that we could be doing right now. And we wanted to be doing this as we're winding up for the next refile. So while we're waiting for that to come up, we're going to be doing all these activities. So there's no lull in activity. And then finally, this is the press release that we got out. We're going to refile the initiative. We weren't sure we can get all the signatures. We wanted to make sure to guarantee a win. There's something about Dr. Xavier, who he is. And if you scroll down a little bit, scroll down some more. That was the thing we were pleased with, because that was a listing of all the things we have planned for. And most of the media articles we had mentioned it. So you never know what you're going to get with the media and a press release. Most of them mentioned we were refiling, and most of them mentioned that we have all these great events coming, which is a huge, big deal. Could have gone differently. They could have been negative. They could have not mentioned anything else, but they mentioned a lot of these other things. So now we're starting to get some publicity for the other activities we have planned coming up. So we're appreciative right now for that. That's it. That's where we're at. That's what we've done. That's where we're going. I don't, and I want to ask you if I can. It's your show, but if I could. Does it look like we've accomplished some stuff and that we have big stuff coming for the future? Your honest opinion.
My honest opinion is yes, but it's not so much the events. That's going to be great. Once they happen, game changers, 100%. They're going to be highly visual. Everyone's going to be very aware that all this stuff is happening. What I've seen the most fundamental change in is the attitudes that people have generally. So I mentioned this before, but if it's not on a daily basis, it's a weekly basis where I interact with people in my hometown, in my community, in my area, right? It's constant. People saying that California really needs to separate and go on its own. They're not outright endorsements of Calexit, but it's just kitchen table talk where people are saying, like, why are we even dealing with any type of poverty here in the state? We shouldn't need to deal with poverty. The only reason we have poverty, for example, is because we're sending all our money away and not getting any of it back. And that's just something that I've heard on the daily, or something that I just heard in passing or something. So I think the attitude of everyone is shifting, and that's going to go in tandem with all these events. Because I think if even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if these events were happening, the attitude of everyone would have been so different, where who knows if they would have been successful, right? So now that people are primed with just the fact that we have someone who is as hostile as Donald Trump attacking our state, quite literally attacking our state, you have people primed to start being aware of these things and to start figuring out what their place is, what their potential place is in a Calexit movement. So I think that the events sound really awesome and sound interesting. And that's going to be kind of like a cherry on top to an already turning tide.
All right. Well, I'll get you that money after the show. Thanks for that. That's a joke. I didn't pay him. I wanted to get his honest reaction. I've been telling the staff we've been getting good reactions to this, but they're not out there like I am. So I wanted to get some videos and go, look, see, showing people, and they're like, yeah, we got some stuff going. We got a big win. We're going to win based upon the ideas and the connections of Dr. X. But I didn't get it until you said it right now. None of this would have worked last year. Might not even work 6 months ago. It said it's happening now. It's all big stuff, and the climate is super ripe. I missed that. Thank you. Absolutely. Totally missed that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's an observation I'm making. It's just something that I'm noticing. And I've never seen this before. Never seen so many people who are either outright Republicans, Democrats, or just apolitical. This is just general, common. These are conversations that they're having. And again, I've never seen that. It's a little jarring at first, but then I'm realizing that people are not only waking up to the fact that we've been treated very unfairly and ripped off, in the words of Donald Trump, right? But that our quality of life could go up if we could potentially be an independent country ourselves and reinvest all that money that we make, our own tax money, back into our own state, so that we deal with our own problems. California has a lot of issues. That's no secret, right? So why are we sending off our money that could fix all of that to people who vote to attack our state with our own military? And a majority of military are Californians, majority of Americans are Californians. So it just seems like an autoimmune disease that makes no sense. And I think that the best way to deal with this is to really create fundamental change, meaning systemically, the federal government should be very different. And if that's not going to happen, and it probably isn't, then maybe we should explore things like Californian independence. It just doesn't make sense to me why we have solutions and we don't use them, because of tradition and because we're scared of what people think. I mean, frankly, I don't feel very safe in this country. I here in my hometown, ICE is going around harassing people. I don't like that. I don't feel safe. I know I could be a target. So what am I doing? Why? What's the point of all this, right?
They pulled over a U.S. citizen, honorably discharged Army veteran, in a brand new truck, proper lights, proper plates, proper registration, and they pulled him over for no reason. They didn't have it. That's why he called. It's on video. Joe Rogan was covering it. Joe Rogan was even like, damn, which tells you how bad that is, because that guy's on, I watch him a little bit, but he's on the conservative side. And even he was like, whoa, like there was no reason to pull him over. There was no taillights out, no nothing. And it was a new truck, and he was driving properly. The only reason they pulled him over was the way his face looked. That was it. And then they pulled him out of the truck, and they interviewed him to make sure he was a citizen. And he goes, I'm a citizen. And he speaks with a perfect American accent. And then he shows them his veterans card, and they still continue the interview. If that happens, brother, you and I have no chance. No chance. Just you keep wearing that face, and I wear this face. I get racially profiled when I drive in rich neighborhoods wearing a tank top. Now, when I drive in poor neighborhoods, no problem. If I drive in a suit, no problem. The moment I drive near Calabasas or north in Fresno or Camarillo, very rich communities, and I'm driving in a tank top, woo, 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 woo. Hello, hi, hello, officer. Why am I being stopped? You match the description. Description of what? Oh, robberies. What do you mean? Somebody is 5'11", 245. They got a fade, slightly light-skinned Latino. Is that what you mean? You just matched the description. Someone screamed into the phone, it's a Mexican, and then you pulled over the first Mexican you saw who you thought looked a little thuggish. Is that what's really going on here, officer? Oh, you can't answer that question because it's incriminating to you and law enforcement? Oh, okay. That's happened 3 times. That's before ICE came. I don't got any chance, bro. We're in Bakersfield, and you know how Bakersfield is to Latino people. That's the only place where Latin males get clipped off and killed at the same rate as African-American males. So the BLM movement is not more important in Bakersfield than Latinos. Latin males die at the same rate of accidental shootings by police as black males in Bakersfield. There's only a few cities in America where that happens. You're damn right. Also, it's called racial profiling. It's wrong. It's just wrong. Now, if a cop has reasonable suspicion, be a police officer. I have family in law enforcement. Go do your job. You're looking at somebody and judging by the color of their face and other facial features if they're a criminal? That's the total opposite of what Martin Luther King was talking about 50 freaking years ago. This is completely legal. The Supreme Court backs it. The Congress backs it. The Republican Party backs it. You look Mexican. Get out. Bro, I don't need to say more than that. There really isn't a reason to say more than that. If you're Latin and you're looking at that and think that everything's wild, you are the Jews who said, let's stay in Germany after Kristallnacht. That's you. I don't have anything nice to say to you. You must be dumb, and perhaps so dumb that evolution should take its place. because clearly you're not. I mean, you are being racially profiled. It's clear. It's legal to racially profile you. There's nothing that can be done about it, and we're going to be punished because we look the way that we look. My mom's Mexican, so therefore, screw you, Mark, for the rest of your life. Wow. And you want me to be loyal to that and think that that's a good functioning country? How?
We need fundamental change. It's very obvious.
It ain't going to be fixed by another election. This guy's been here 3 elections in a cycle. That's the one. And then go, oh, well, what if he goes? J.D. Vance is going to be different? J.D. Vance got into office by, I told you that, running the commercial saying, do you hate Mexicans? So the vice president got in by running a commercial in Ohio asking if you hate Mexicans. I don't, that's as crystal nocty as it gets, bro.
Right? He comes to California and goes to Disneyland with his family and no issue.
Hey, that's great. And then when Padilla, the first Latino senator, one of the first Latino senators, is thrown to the ground, he intentionally mispronounces his name while telling everybody it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked up. That's insane.
That's an accident, given the guy ran a TV commercial saying, do you hate Mexicans? Like if I walk around going, 6 million Jews didn't die in World War II, 6 million Jews didn't die in World War II. How dare you call me a Holocaust denier? I just said that once. That's not how that works. There's stupid stuff that you say once and you're done. You don't walk that back. You don't say 6 million Jews didn't die in World War II. You don't say, do you hate Mexicans? You don't say, a couple black people got killed. So what? You don't say that. You don't walk that back. You don't get an excuse. You don't get a second trial. So 2 points makes a line. This guy said, do you hate Mexicans to win? And then he insulted everybody who was horrified by seeing someone who looks like us thrown to the ground when they're the highest ranking Latin person in all of the American government. It was funny to him and meant nothing. And that's just he just coincidentally was the same guy who said, do you hate Mexicans? Bro, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And people go, well, his wife's a minority. You ever heard of sellouts? We call them vendidos. I was raised as a child knowing blanquitos. So 1/4 of Latin community has always been a sellout. And my friends would go, oh, Trump's turning to Latin people. No, I was 13 years old and my mom was pointing out to me there's some Mexicans who think it's okay to talk trash on Mexicans because they think they'll get accepted by racist whites better. That goes back to the late 70s. That's in Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona. This is part of Latin culture. He's just tapped into it. So, okay, you're a sellout. Great. Minorities can be sellouts. There was a guy called Rudyard Kipling. He wrote the book Jungle Book. It's a famous movie. He was Indian, and he wrote his stories in the late 1800s. He was an apologist for England. He was Indian, and he was constantly telling the British public, Indian people are stupid and you have a right to colonize them. That's why they allowed him to be published. That's why the book Jungle Book came out. That's why it's a Disney film. That's the history of Jungle Book. Rue Bear and the guy, and he's talking to the bear. That comes from Rudyard Kipling, who was allowed to be published because he said brown people are inferior. I'm a brown person. I know it. And you white people are correct in conquering us because we're brown-skinned. That's literally what he did. And he was rewarded for it. And we still show movies based upon his writing today. So people can be vendidos, blanquitos, Uncle Toms. The Holocaust camps were run by Jews. The Nazis didn't have enough staff. They hired Jews to help make sure that other Jews got in the gas chambers. Sellouts exist throughout history. So when I see somebody, oh, he's got a minority wife. Yeah, so what? The guy of the Proud Boys is Cuban. And those guys are white supremacists. What are you doing, hermano? Gente, what are you doing? I don't question it because I've seen it. I had uncles in Texas who did this. They would drive, I think I told you, they would drive around, and when a Mexican person didn't turn on their signal, they'd yell at them at the top of their lungs, stupid Mexican, and they would be Mexican. And the idea is if I trash my own race, white people will accept me more. No, they won't. But that belief's gone on for 60 years. It predates my birth. My mom was dealing with this before I was even born. She was telling me. That's what I learned at age 13 what this was. So there's sellouts, there's cheap people, there's people who just want to get ahead. There's people who will sell out their whole race, who will look the other way. Calexitnow.org, 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 calexitnow.org. We're even good enough now that if you just type in Calexit Now or Calexit on Google, we're the first search engine result. So calexitnow.org is the other group, is the group that I'm with. There are others, but we're the largest, and we're the ones making all these things happen, and we're the ones that filed the petition. So nobody owns the term Calexit. Anybody could get out there. Anybody could file the petition. Anybody could do these things. However, track record shows we're the only group doing all this. We're the only ones working at this level. So I'd like to see more groups doing that, but right now it's just us. Calexitnow.org.
Marcus, thank you for joining us again and giving us updates on the Calexit movement, where you are, and the exciting events and really everything that's going on with the movement. And then also just the movie festival is going to be really awesome. So I'm glad to see that's happening, and people wearing different hats from different industries coming together and showing people that everything is possible, just a matter of organizing and informing the populace. So really, really awesome to see that. We'll have you back on for more updates about where you are. And until then, stay safe, and we will talk soon.